This is Hiss. Now, notice I didn't say this is my friend Hiss, because Hiss is not my friend. I'm wearing a falconer's glove, because Hiss is not friendly. Now, he's not harmful, but he is a North American Western hognose snake. Western as opposed to Eastern. There are two different main types of hognose snakes in America. There's the Eastern hognose, which lives on the East Coast, and they mostly eat things like amphibians, so they make terrible pets because you have to find frogs to feed your snake. That's really hard to do. But a Western hognose snake will eat things like mice, so they make much better pets, but they're not really for people who want to be handling their pets. That's why I'm wearing this glove. Hiss is not very friendly. He doesn't like to be touched. He doesn't like to be looked at. He doesn't like you to even acknowledge that he exists. He likes to hide and be left alone. There's a couple interesting things about Hiss. As I mentioned, he's a Western hognose snake, which means he lives right here in Colorado. And so if you're out in your backyard looking for animals and you come across a snake, you might actually find a Western hognose that looks exactly like he does. Another interesting thing about him is his coloring. His coloring is brown and green, which camouflages really well in Colorado. Let's say you're out in the mountains hiking about and you see a snake. It might be difficult for you to see him unless he moves, because this kind of greenish brown color is really good for helping them to camouflage themselves among the grass and a sagebrush and leaves and rocks. So Hiss is a hognose snake, and he's called that because if you look at his nose, I don't know how well you can see that on the camera. Ugh. He does not want to play nicely. But if you look at his nose, I don't know if you can see that, but he's got a kind of a flat, round nose that's kind of like a pig's snout. And just like a pig, what hognose snakes like to do is they like to burrow and dig. See how he's trying to do that on my glove? He's trying to burrow. He's wondering, like, how can I get down below the surface here? So he'll use his snout, his hognose, to push through like dead leaves and branches and sticks and rocks and twigs to stay. He'll never burrow like completely under the ground, but maybe an inch or two of dead leaves and things like that. So they stay pretty close to the surface, but they like to be covered. And so that's what his nose is for. It helps him push things out of the way so he can find a safe spot that makes him feel safe. Now, hognose snakes, they make really great pets if you feed them frozen thawed mice like I do, and if you don't touch them too much. One thing that's interesting, he's being very nice right now. I think it's mostly because he's cold and because he's dazed by these two lights that I have here. Normally, his tank is a lot darker than this. But another fascinating thing about hognose snakes is that they love to play dead. And you may have seen or heard of snakes that flip themselves over and open their mouths and stick their tongues out and pretend to be dead. That's these guys right here. They'll do that when they encounter a raccoon or a possum or other animals where they feel like they're being attacked and they feel like they're going to be maybe eaten. They'll play dead so that an animal that wants to eat a live snake will look at him and say, "Ooh, that's a dead snake. I don't think I want to eat that. It's probably been dead for days. It's probably no good. I don't think I want to eat that." And what's funny is when that predator then leaves, then a little snake like this will flip right over and slither back into his hiding spot and survive for another day. As part of their bluffing that they do, hognose snakes love to strike. And so when I change his water dish, for example, he will strike many times and hiss. Of course, he's not hissing for me right now, which I guess that's thoughtful of him. Thanks, Hiss. But normally he'll strike 2 or 3 or 4 times, even just when I change his water dish. But his mouth is closed the entire time, which is really funny because what that tells you is that he doesn't really want to bite me. He just wants to scare me off. So hognose snakes are masters of bluffing. They're really good at pretending and hoping that you think that they're actually going to hurt you when they really have no intention of hurting you at all. Another interesting thing is look at his stomach. I don't know if you can see that, but check out how much darker his stomach is than his back. And to me, it kind of looks like his stomach was burnt. It looks like somebody set him down on a hot griddle and he burnt his entire underside. But that's just the way that God made them. They have this black, dark underside that totally looks different than the top. And the other fascinating thing is look at how rough his scales are. They're really rough. They're not smooth. They feel almost like a pine cone. If you've ever like dragged your fingers on a pine cone, it feels rough and pointy like that. And that's just because they're a rough-scaled snake. They're kind of like a rattlesnake in that regard. So you only want to pet them one way, not two ways when you're petting a hognose snake. So if you see a hognose snake like this in your backyard, maybe don't pick it up, but don't be afraid of it. It's not going to hurt you at all, and they're non-venomous, and just leave them alone and they'll leave you alone. They'll only act up and try and strike at you or hiss at you if they feel threatened. So if you see one of these in your backyard, and the likelihood is pretty high that you will because they do live here in Colorado, just look at them and enjoy them and say, wow, that's really cool that I got to see a hognose snake here in my own yard. And then just watch him and let him slither away, because I promise he doesn't want to hurt you at all. So thanks, Hiss. Thanks for participating, buddy.